Hello, people of no color and no culture. Yesterday, Wednesday, January 11th, airplanes were not allowed to depart throughout the United States. Not private, not commercial airlines were not allowed to depart. I don't know if there was any military planes in the air. Don't know what is going on because they won't tell us. There's always smoke and mirrors. Sometimes they tell us, but it sounds so ridiculous you don't think it's true. So yesterday, flights were not allowed to depart. And in some articles you'll read, it'll say that they were grounded. No, they weren't grounded. Flights that had already taken off were allowed to go to their destination. I don't know if in September 11th, if right after the buildings, Tower 1 and Tower 2 were crashed into, were the flights grounded, where I think planes were told to land at the nearest airport. But in this instance, they weren't. In this instance, they weren't told that they needed to land at the nearest place. They were allowed to go to their destination. So let's look at this. We're on deadline.com here. And at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is 8:30 p.m. here on the East Coast. I'm not in the East Coast, I'm in the Midwest, but we have the same time zone. A corrupted file is being blamed from the massive shutdown of U.S. air transportation this morning. The FAA is continuing a thorough review to determine the root cause of the Notice to Air Missions NOTAM system. And by the way, this used to be called the Notice to Airmen system, or Airmen, but they changed the word Airmen to Missions because it's inclusive. Seriously, that's what I read. Our preliminary work has traced the outage to a damaged database file. At this time, there is no evidence of a cyber attack. The FAA is working diligently to further pinpoint the cause of this issue and take all needed steps to prevent this kind of disruption from happening again, the statement read. Flights were grounded after the corrupted file was discovered in the NOTAM main and backup system. Flights already in the air were permitted to land. Okay. So that's really strange. The flights already in the air were allowed to continue to their destination. And then we have a corrupted file. We have a corrupted, the primary and the backup system is corrupted. That's weird. Isn't it? That's unusual. Have you ever had anything like that happen before? Where the primary and the backup were just both went on the fritz at the same time? That's strange. So it makes me think that this was on purpose. I'm thinking that I could be wrong, because they only give us so much information, and then we have to extrapolate from that and come up with our own hypotheses and try to figure out what's going on. And sometimes we just don't get enough data to know. So anyway, we just kind of stay in the land of hypothesis. All right, so previously, this is what they said. The FAA said that normal air traffic operations are resuming after an unusual overnight computer system outage forced the grounding of all departing flights in the United States for much of the early morning. The agency said that the outage was to Notice to Airmen system. Some of this might be redundant because these are different posts all compiled together on this website. That the outage was to the Notice to Air Missions system that provides safety information to flight crews. The ground stop was lifted at 5:50 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time. We continue to look into the cause of the initial problem, the agency said. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, boy, that just screams confidence, doesn't it, and competence, said that he has directed an after-action process to determine the cause. Determine the cause. And then previously, it was reported that the potato-in-chief said the Department of Transportation does not know yet what caused a major computer outage that grounded flights in the U.S. as reporters pressed him on the possibility of a cyber attack. Well, with so much affirmative action and diversity being our strength, we don't really need a cyber attack. They don't know what the cause of it is. They expect in a couple of hours they'll have a good sense of what caused it and will respond at that time, the potato said. The FAA said shortly after 5:15 a.m. or 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time, that first time was Pacific Time, that departures have resumed at Newark and Atlanta airports and that they expect departures to resume at other airports at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. The unusual system-wide failure naturally drew the attention of major networks, morning shows, and cable news networks, which quickly dispatched correspondents to the nearest airports to gauge the impact. Right, so they just talked to people who are angry, and people who love water cooler gossip probably got high off of that. You're going to see a ripple effect all into today and well into tomorrow, said Captain John Cox, an aviation analyst on MSNBC, because you know when you no longer work for a company or in an industry, you have the 411, right? FAA also said that all flights currently in the sky are safe to land. Pilots check the NOTAM system. Okay, so here we go. This is how this NOTAM system works. Pilots check the NOTAM system before they fly. A notice to air missions alerts pilots about closed runways, equipment outages, and other potential hazards along a flight route or at a location that could affect the flight, the agency said. Okay, that sounds really freaking stupid. Why? Because there's air traffic controllers. They freaking talk to them. This is stupid. So, reading stuff like this, it makes me think that just total incompetence. And then previously it was reported air travel across the U.S. has been disrupted this morning after the Federal Aviation Administration experienced a major computer outage. All flights were grounded following the incident, according to NBC News, leaving thousands of customers grounded across the country with no clear time frame on when things will return to normal. A statement from the FAA said it was working to restore its notice to air missions NOTAM system. We are performing final validation checks and reloading the system now. Do they use like MS-DOS or something like that? Do you guys remember that? You have to put the floppy disk in there just to even turn the computer on and make it work. Operations across the national airspace system are affected. We will provide frequent updates as we make progress, the statement released about 3:30 a.m. Pacific time noted. A follow-up message released on Twitter, oh my god, Twitter, huh? Said that while some functions are beginning to come back online, national airspace system operations remain limited. With no timeline in place for the NOTAM system being fully restored, air travel will be unpredictable today at the very least. According to Flight Tracker, FlightAware.com, more than 1,200 flights have been delayed within, into, or out of the U.S. today. American Air tweeted to the outage was impacting all flights, including all carriers, while United Airlines said it had temporarily delayed all domestic flights. This disruption follows on from the air travel chaos sparked by storms in the East Coast over the turn of the year, which saw thousands of flights canceled due to the weather over the turn of the year. Who wrote this? Probably somebody, I don't know. At the beginning of the year or the end of the year, I guess in December, there was we had some snowstorms that delayed flights. But anyway, so let's hypothesize or speculate what is going on. It sounds like to me that they're trying to automate air traffic controllers. Why? Because Generation X is beginning to retire. Generation X is the last generation of people that is competent. And I know this might hurt, it sounds awful. There's a lot of really good millennials and Zoomers out there, don't get me wrong, or Gen Zs or whatever, but there's just not enough of you. And then you have the diversity as our strength, so much affirmative action that will never be competent. So they're trying to automate everything. And this is my assumption, my hypothesis, given the data that I have. Because whenever you formulate a hypothesis, you have to use what you know, all the data that you have in front of you. And so it might be that they did this this was done on purpose because the U.S. government was up to something, bringing something into the airspace that shouldn't be there, and they didn't want any witnesses. Or the system that, like I'm saying here, the system that's automating everything, because there's not going to be any competent air traffic controllers or enough of them to run the airlines. They want everything to go smoothly, but when these systems break and then there's nobody to fix them, because machines are breaking and there's nobody to fix them currently. The people who pave our roads, have you looked at them? Have you looked at the workers who work on things? The plumbers, the electricians, everybody's in their 50s. There's a few people who are younger, but the younger people are not picking up the slack. So our infrastructure is failing, and I think that this is just a reflection of that. Or maybe they allowed something, it might be both, they allowed something into the airspace because we are, and this is a prediction that I have, and it's not really based on any tactile evidence, it's just an assumption. And again, I guess this is a wild guess. I'm going to say this is a wild guess. We are going to have a fake alien invasion. Wild guess. I don't even know why I came up with that. I don't even know what evidence I have that there's going to be a fake alien invasion, but I'm just assuming that there's going to be one because after, the stupid hysteria, the stupid 19 hysteria, and then previous to that, we had, terrorism, and we have terrorism, right? And everybody's supposed to be afraid of terrorists, and then we let all the people that the government's called terrorists into our country. Well, that's real brilliant, isn't it? And, but we don't have any terrorist attacks. I mean, they said we had one in September 11th, and they occasionally, Bowling Green, but it doesn't, if a certain population are a bunch of terrorists, we should have had a lot more terrorist attacks. That's what I'm saying. And then what was previous to that, then we had the nuclear scare that the Russians were coming. They were going to bomb us. We had the movie Red Dawn. What else? Other thing that we have? Oh, we're going to have an ice age. And so we had that movie The Day After Tomorrow to scare us. It's always a constant, keep everybody scared. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, what's in our future, but our infrastructure's failing and there's nobody to do the jobs. It's unfortunate. All right, people of no color and no culture, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to your thoughts below.